Hello, selamat sejahtera. Selamat datang and welcome to Kita Family Podcast. Di sini, kami akan membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan upaya. Hari ini, kami ada koram yang penuh bagi Kita Family Podcast dan kami sangat gembira kerana ada 4 orang di studio, iaitu Nori.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
Desiree.
Hai, apa khabar?
Kakak SK.
Apa khabar?
Dan dari Kota Kinabalu, kami ada Didi yang pakaian serba merah hari ini.
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
Pada hari ini, kami akan membincangkan topik yang amat unik juga kerana kami akan membincangkan topik keluarga nuklear, iaitu keluarga yang ada bersama dengan kami dalam our parenthood journey. That means the people around us, terutamanya bapa kepada anak dan siblings ataupun adik-beradik. So, dengan tidak melengahkan masa lagi, saya akan memulakan dengan mengajak Didi dari Kota Kinabalu untuk share a bit about your thoughts of the role of ayah in the lives of your children.
Okay, of course boleh cakap pasal ayah, selain daripada ayah sendiri, ayah kepada anak, which is my husband lah. Because kita tak banyak sangat, kita tak banyak sangat, bukan tak banyak hubungan, tapi sebagai contoh, ayah mertua saya meninggal ketika anak sulung saya baru berumur 2 tahun setengah, belum 3 tahun lagi. Jadi maksudnya tak banyak lah dalam kehidupan anak saya membesar. Dan kemudian ayah saya pula sudah meninggal lebih kurang 5 tahun yang lalu. Tapi sepanjang anak saya membesar, ayah saya tinggal jauh, tinggal di Kota Baru Kelantan, sedangkan kami tinggal di Selangor. Jadi tak banyak ambil bahagian lah dalam membesarkan anak-anak saya. So pada saya, kalau kata ayah dalam kehidupan family nuklear kami, it will be my husband lah, suami saya. And of course, dia kesan adanya role seorang ayah ni sangat besar lah, dari segi kasih sayang, dari segi tumpuan yang perlu diberikan kepada anak. Dan kalau kita cakap ayah ni, tumpuan bukan sekadar kepada anak, tapi tumpuan yang ayah perlu berikan kepada si ibu. So, kepada isteri, kepada kita lah, kepada ibu kan. Dan apa yang pernah saya belajar, thanks to SK, ini workshop yang kita attend dekat center SK lah ni. Ada pakar lah, dia share, dia kata hadiah yang paling baik untuk seorang bapa berikan kepada ibu adalah kasih sayang. So lebih baik kepada anak. Hadiah yang paling baik untuk anak adalah menyayangi ibu. So dia macam, dia tidak, bukan kata tak, dengan sayang ibu tak perlu sayang anak, tak. Tapi a happy mom will make a happy family. That's what I believe. And I think it really macam something yang sentiasa kita kita rasa bila si ayah meraihkan ibu, meraihkan anak-anak. Bila raihkan anak-anak, ibu pun rasa happy. Bila raihkan ibu, anak-anak pun akan rasa happy. Of course, there will be spill over of the rasa penuh kan, rasa hati kita penuh ni, mesti dia punya happiness tu melimpah-limpah dan anak-anak kita dapat rasa. So that's my thoughts on the role of father lah.
Okay, any greeting for the upcoming Father's Day?
Oh yeah, of course. Interesting about Father's Day, just nak share kan. Because dia weekend ketiga, is it? Setiap Jun.
Weekend ketiga
Ke
bulan
kedua?
Jun. Ya.
Selalu dia memang
Ahad ni.
Ahad ni dia memang selalu coincide beberapa hari dengan hari jadi arwah mama saya, which is 19 Jun, dan ibu mertua saya 18 Jun. Jadi kita memang selalu celebrate. Kita celebrate besar-besar lah. Hari jadi mak mertua, hari jadi mama, hari jadi, dan juga hari bapa. So it's a big thing for our family lah. So selamat hari bapa. Selamat hari bapa kepada suami tercinta.
Oh. No, and how does Zaid deal with all the women in his life?
That one I have to ajar lah. I have to tell him, okay, this is the date. I think no. The thing is, I would be the one who order the cake. I would be the one who like prepare for apa nak cater for food and everything. So I would just plan lah, and then kita bayar dulu, lepas tu kita buat bill untuk ni lah, untuk kita claim balik. So he's like that. I'm like that.
That's nice. Nori, any wishes on this upcoming Father's Day for anyone?
Yes, Father's Day. I think a little bit, kalau bolehlah sentuh tentang, saya sebut tentang ayah saya dululah, yang saya sebut Baba. Bagi saya Baba kerana pada tahap ini dia lah dalam konteks dia sebagai seorang atuk lah, ya. Kalau dalam keluarga kami dia Tok Wan. So Tok Wan, Tok Wan sekarang ada dementia, right? So dementia ni dah pada peringkat yang agak I would say dah beransur lah. So it's late stage dementia. So he is already somebody yang dengan sendirinya memerlukan banyak sokongan sekarang ni kan. But I just thought that I would share that Timur, so anak saya Timur yang autistik ni, sebenarnya kita namakan, nama penuhnya kita namakan sempena my father. So nama dia Timur Abdullah. So the Abdullah is of course Tok Wan lah. So Tok Wan, I remember, was very happy when he heard that he had one cucu whose name was Abdullah as well. So it's quite interesting that it is the two Abdullahs of my life yang at the moment memerlukan sokongan yang tambahan oleh kerana keadaan hakikat masing-masing, ya. Dia tidak sama, tetapi kedua-duanya melibatkan something that is neurological, right? Berkaitan dengan bagaimana otak kita berfungsi and how things have changed. But I have to say that if I think about father on Father's Day, there's a bit of guilt also, because I have the 3 boys, and with Timur and needing all his needs, I am not as much with Baba as I would like to be. So actually on Father's Day 1, I would like to say that I'm remembering him, but on Father's Day, it's my little tribute actually to my stepmom, who's been really amazing and wonderful, and not just her, but also my step siblings, especially my stepsisters. So it's like apart from my brother and me, Baba added on more children, daughters, and life was it turned out that way. And I am so grateful to God. Alhamdulillah lah, we have this extended family, right? So we're supposed to speak about siblings a little bit later, but I'm acknowledging my siblings too. And it's because that they are there that it has helped, so much, that I feel that Timur is the priority, and I have to be with him at this stage when things are a little bit difficult. But my father is taken care of so well because of these other wonderful people around him, wonderful women in particular, but also my brother-in-law. So there's no Uncle's Day, but or like a Brother's Day, but we have that. I suppose I can say that. And I think, so nak ucapkan jugalah, I mean, we still speak to Baba. He doesn't respond, but I think he still can get or sort of perceive, certain things we're not quite sure because he doesn't speak anymore, but you might still be able to understand. And we are together as a family. We still speak to him as if, he's part of the conversation, right? So I still want to say, Happy Father's Day, Baba. You're the, you're number one man that I looked up to. And I remember my late mother used to say, you don't have to look very far to figure out what is going to be the best sort of model for you to find for a partner in life. Just look at your dad. And so she put this super high benchmark out there, but I will never forget that. And it's been amazing. I feel that, of course, I miss him because things have changed, right? So when you have dementia, things like that has happened to your family, it feels a little bit like a long goodbye. But nevertheless, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah for everything. So grateful. He's still here. We still have that opportunity to be with him, and to care for him. So, Tok Wan is still here. And I have to say now, at this moment, when Timur is having a bit of a difficult time, Timur has not wanted to do a lot. But dia nak pergi rumah Tok Wan. So, of all the places, there's like, you want to go to Tok Wan's house, So wants to go to Tok Wan's house, he'll go and see Tok Jean. So that's huge. That's big. He still wants to do that.
There must be some telepathic communication between the two
Abdullahs. So. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there is. I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, these are things.
They have their own special connection and bond.
Yes,
right?
There might be that, and it's always nice to think about anyway, right?
Absolutely.
And so maybe since we're giving out the wishes, Selamat Hari Bapa to Papa of Cougar, Puma and Leo, Papa of the 3 cats. We have been married more than 20 years. And anybody in a marriage that long knows that it is full of everything. It's ups and downs. It's so many things, and I think including a lot of different things that nobody ever planned for, nobody has ever expected. But I have to say, Papa, the one thing that I am consistently grateful for is I think that we have been good partners for our kids. So in the context of you being a Papa, there will never be another Papa. And I'm sure the kids would say that too. Whatever it is, and from all the different things that this very unique Papa has, and being the guy he is out there, and of people knowing him, and me and the kids trying to figure out what is this, and sometimes it's a little bit, it's like a crossover between like a huge amount of pride and some cringe at the same time because of such a public thing, for everything. It's there is absolutely no doubt at all, that we wouldn't want it to be any other way. That is the one and only Papa, and thank you so much. Thank you for being a great partner in raising our kids, and now that we are at this phase of where he's still busy, but not so much in terms of like a schedule that is dictated by his job. Sekarang ni kira dah ada flexibility sikit lah. Sungguh pun jadual yang masih sangat sibuk dan ketat. I think we're looking forward to me and the kids. We're looking forward to continuing to see this new role of having you more around, because he has always been very hands-on whenever he can. It's just the problem is it cannot be such a very regular thing because the job used to be very, very demanding, right? The job, public office is very, very demanding. But now, insyaAllah, ada peluang macam tu, and memang of course anak kita ada pada tahap umur yang amat memerlukan. Kita ada 2 orang remaja, as you said, we have the 2 teens, and yang bongsu ni still of course memang banyak memerlukan attention juga kerana baru umur 9 tahun, dan of course Timur sangat memerlukan lah kehadiran bapanya.
I'm just trying to compare, Nori, because I just asked Didi how Zaid dealt with the women in his house. So you have a totally opposite. You've got all males.
All boys. Yeah. But in my household, I live in an extended family household kan. Dalam rumah kami ada 8 orang ahli keluarga. Kerana kami duduk bersama dengan mak mertua, duduk bersama dengan mak kepada suami saya, dan juga until very recently seorang kakak ipar yang mempunyai anak perempuan, anak saudara pun ada, and of course kami berlima. So the house actually feels quite balanced, and then kadang-kadang it's actually penuh dengan orang perempuan. And I remember before when I think that time we were probably still dating. And I don't remember the exact context, but Kari was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm already used to this very opinionated and talkative women in my life. Looked at me. So agaknya memang tengah cakap sebut dengan saya sebagai seorang yang opinionated dan talkative lah kan. Dan dia kata dia dah biasa. So Alhamdulillah for that.
It's all meant to be.
Yes,
All meant
it's
to be.
meant
Yes. So I guess the
Yeah.
3 boys balance it out a bit with all those women that he grew up
Yes,
with.
yes. I think they're very
got his
happy to
tribe.
be. Yes, betul. memang.
Yes.
Yes, the boys. And I don't know, I think it's nice. I'm quite happy to be queen. I think it's okay.
Queen.
I want to be
Hot.
queen too.
Yeah, you will always still be queen. Yeah.
Well,
You need to be the
whenever-
queen. You have 2 princesses. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Whenever my children say that, I'm a princess, like, yeah, if you are a princess, I'll be the queen lah, kan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sudah
Claim it.
tentu.
The
Eternal.
mother of princesses
Eternally.
has to be a queen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Confirm.
Confirm. Yeah. So Kakak SK, your thoughts on this?
You know, I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity now to reflect and actually to take this opportunity to thank my dearest husband, Chokman. Chokman, from the very beginning in our family, really is at the forefront, attending every learning, every therapy session. If you recall, when Joshua was diagnosed, he was only 18 months. And before we started therapy, by coincidence, Chokman was setting up a preschool with a plan at that time, that early years, I think this is 13 years back, to do inclusive education. So as part of that part of his professional journey, we were learning together as husband and wife about inclusion and trying to figure out what inclusion in education meant. And just taking that story forward, 6 months later, only Joshua was diagnosed. So in that sense, as a father, Chokman, we are very bertuah lah, has been in that journey, very immersed, where we would be attending the medical consultation, both locally and when we had to do it abroad. And we have his time to come into every therapy session where we will be there. I recall very vividly, the recall and the reflection is having him in the session together and learning together. Over and above that, because Chokman is an educationist at heart, we are also very fortunate, Chokman, because you are such a wonderful, this is my tribute to my husband. Chokman, you are such a wonderful play father, of which Mama isn't. I'm not really a very good play parent. And I remember when we were doing a particular therapy called Relationship Development Intervention, RDI, at that early years, this is well before online, internet, we literally were having to use our phone, record, and then send the snippets over to our therapists in the US. I was terrified because I'm not play oriented in the first place. And then there's this recording. But we are so blessed. Again, I'm just expressing my gratitude again, how involved as a father he was and continue to be. And because of his curiosity about education and inclusive education, we continue to learn together. So in that sense, the learning for our family together ada personal learning, ada professional learning, and he naturally enjoys being part of the intervention. So from there, I believe as a nuclear family, we have been very fortunate. Ya, nasib baik, bertuah sangat, ada partisipasi my husband and dad to Joshua.
Anak saya pun dah merasa dapat bermain dengan Mr. Law.
And that's,
Yeah,
that's
he's
Mr.
very
Law.
playful,
That's
kan?
Mr.
Dia
Law,
memang
the
berminat.
educationist and kawan.
Yeah.
He's his
Betul.
friend to the young, the old. He's just very engaging that way lah. Yeah. I do want to also pay tribute to my dad because I just want to tell one short story. At that point, when this is how the Chinaman granddad or father that he is to me. We were in a plane trip back from Singapore, and I remember all my father said at the end of the trip was, "Oh, Joshua doesn't stop talking."
Comment.
And he left it at that because he recognized that Joshua is different. He's aware about the autism, and that is that patient part of a grandfather, I would say, sitting through. Basically, my father was trapped, kan? Because on the plane, and Joshua was having a conversation with my dad and my father. I think for 45 minutes. So
Couldn't
thank you.
run and couldn't hide.
I had to really. So the tolerance and the understanding as a grandfather. I also want to wish both Chokman, my husband, father to our two kids, and my dad, happy Father's Day. And Chokman's late father, really, who modeled. Chokman's father passed away a year ago. But Chokman's fathering heart, I believe, actually arises from his family's very close father-son relationships. So I'm very grateful. And again, happy Father's Day to all fathers, grandfathers of the world.
Oh, that's nice.
It's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
Now we go to
Desiree.
Desiree.
Banyak cerita ni.
We have time.
Saya akan bagi versi yang pendek. So firstly, I will cerita sikit tentang bapa saya. So when Hans was born, masa tu memang dah ada grandchildren who are much older. Masa tu I think my nephews maybe dah teenagers lah. So my dad pun dah retired masa Hans was born, and kami memang duduk serumah, my parents, my husband and I. Hans was born. So my dad untuk pertama kali dalam hidupnya dapat tengok seorang baby hari-hari. As in, as in, I mean, of course, he's a father to two daughters. Yes, he saw us as babies. Tapi at that point of time, he had to work. Pagi pergi kerja, balik petang, sometimes malam. So hardly much time with us except on the weekends. Tetapi dengan Hans, my son, boleh nampak dia born dari the first day itself. Every day, my dad will angkat the baby, Hans as a baby, bagi dia susu. So even as he was growing up, memang dia ada satu bond yang sampai hari ni very, very special. And I can honestly say saya pun tak faham that bond. And
Don't you should try.
yeah, and memang rasa sangat bertuah that Hans has it and my dad has it. And kita selalu joke lah dalam my family. My nephew sekarang dah besar, adults 21 and 24. Dan the family joke is that Hans is the favourite. Tapi tak ada pun rasa jealous ke apa, because they know Hans is different and he came much later. And our journey with the autism and Hans, my dad lah yang setiap buku tentang autism saya baca, dia akan baca juga. Setiap training yang saya pergi, sekiranya percuma ataupun tak mahal, dia akan join saya. And whatever I say, he actually look to me to take the lead, to tell him that Okay, macam ni, this is what we should do. And he is always the first to check in with me on anything, whether it's food ke, behavior ke, macam ni, okay ke? Saya buat untuk Hans.
Wow.
You know,
That is amazing.
and in that sense, my mum
Bless
pun
him.
kenalah ambil the lead from him, right? So you know, with moms, I mean, my mum also adalah special bond dengan Hans. Tetapi with mothers, dia is different. Mothers and daughters, it means my mum and me lain lah sikit. Like,
Yup.
you know, fathers and daughters, that bond I think is very different and very special. So my tribute to my dad is thank you for raising me to be this confident. Sebab masa kecil-kecil, he raised us girls to be confident and independent, and ajar kita, carilah suami yang boleh tahan your independence.
Very wise.
Carilah suami yang boleh support you. Which leads me to my husband, of course.
Wow.
Yang sangat-sangat supportive lah. Anyone who knows us, knows our family. Memang I would not be sitting here if not for my husband's support. And inilah the emotional part of my journey. When my son was diagnosed with autism, I think I ada cerita sedikit. 2 months later, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And itulah perjalanan yang paling susah untuk saya. The autism wasn't hard. The cancer was the thing that, is he going to make it? Memanglah terlintas many times. Tetapi I have to say, his love for his son is the reason he is happy and healthy today. Setiap surgery, setiap operation dia pergi, every time he comes out, kan when you wake up from GA memang like, kadang-kadang you speak nonsense, kadang-kadang you say things that you really mean, then you tak ingat. But his first words, regardless manalah, sebab kita ada buat surgeries overseas juga, first question is, where's my son? Where's my son? And memang he's a very active father in Hans' life. I always tell people, apa yang saya boleh buat untuk anak saya, bapa dia pun boleh buat. So whether it's masa baby, the nighttime bottle feed, dialah yang bangun bagi the bottle feed to my son sebab I had a C-section. So he was the one doing the night feeds for the first 2 weeks. Even with the autism diagnosis, he really allowed me to take the lead. Memang tak ada masalah penerimaan in terms of intervention. As much as possible in the early days, memang dia ikut for therapy and all that. But even now, walaupun schedule dia busy sikit, our schedules are all over the place basically. Tetapi the yearly appointment dengan developmental peds, itulah janji dia that we always go as a family. Sebab he actually spends a lot of time with Hans on his own. Their outing. So kalau siapa-siapa tengok dalam Facebook, he has his own hashtag called SONDAY, Sunday. So he takes him out
Wonderful.
on drives, long drives in his 4-wheel drive. So I guess my tribute to my husband is thank you for being the most amazing appa and best husband I could have ever dreamed of having.
Oh.
Bless. Happy Father's Day to
Happy
my
Father's Day.
keripik supplier.
Rahsia terbongkar.
Yeah.
How about you, Anit?
on-
Anit kena share juga.
How about me? Yes. Okay.
Oh,
So
kan?
I
Jangan
need to pay
lari.
Okay, I have to pay tribute to my late dad who never met my children. So he passed away before he became a grandfather officially, although there was a grandchild on the way, and that was Nira. But I think his one lesson to me, other than the fact that he never differentiated between boys and girls, was that every child is capable of something. So I pay tribute to him because he taught me, because one of his best friends' son was neurodivergent. He was dyslexic at a time when nobody knew what dyslexia was. And this was a boy who was in government school, and a Malay boy, and who was my dad's favorite. And when there was a question about what his diagnosis was, my dad actually took the day off, in fact, few days, and drove to Singapore at that point in time. This was years ago, because that god brother of mine is close to 40 now, and got the diagnosis in Singapore. And then went around looking to say, what can be done for this boy? it was not a question of accepting what the diagnosis was. It was like, what next? What can we do? So
So we know where she got it from.
yeah. So I got it from my dad.
Wow.
So I'm sure he's watching down. So happy Father's Day to all those who have dads who are not around, wherever they are. And also, I think to my husband, who's my son's biggest hero. So I think with all boys, their fathers are their heroes.
Yep.
And I can tell you for sure that with my boys, their dad is their hero. For Nirav especially, he's superhero. And now his superhero has been his driving instructor. So which is super, super awesome. And I can see the bond. And then I see him come home, Nirav going really happy and Sanjeev just going. And I look at him and he goes. So well, he's not saying it, but I'm sure it took a lot of patience, more patience than a lot of the therapy that I went for. But this is giving him the life skill and giving him wings to drive.
No, there's a lot of pride there.
There's
Okay,
a lot
I received the video of one of those driving lessons, not from you, but from Superhero.
Superhero. So happy Father's Day to those two superheroes in my life. And we are grateful, super grateful for you and for all that you do. And continue to be superheroes to everybody around you, not just as dads, but as what they did as in their profession. So with my husband, I can tell he's balancing his therapeutic role as a doctor and learning about diversity. And for that, I am super grateful and extremely thankful. On that note, we'll take a short break and we shall be back after this. Jumpa sebentar lagi. Selamat kembali ke Kita Family Podcast. Dalam episod ini, kami sedang membincangkan berkenaan nuclear family dan the support system yang kita ada bersama dengan anak-anak kami. Sebelum kami break tadi, kami telah membincangkan berkenaan peranan ayah dan juga memberi ucapan selamat Hari Bapa kepada semua ayah yang menonton pada hari ini. Didi, ada yang nak tambah sebelum kita start segmen yang berkenaan dengan siblings atau adik-beradik?
Itulah rasa macam tak cukup penghargaan. Saya ingin merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan dengan ucapan selamat Hari Bapa to the greatest father that my children have ever has. Sebab yang betul-betul menunjukkan that he's such a great father. Bila kita dapat tahu yang kita perlu pindah ke Kota Kinabalu, well, there's an option lah. Zaid pindah ke sini, kami boleh stay di KL. Tapi bila saya cakap pada anak-anak, okay, you got a choice, you can come along, we all go to Kota Kinabalu with daddy, or we can just stay here and daddy will come back every weekend. And the eldest, Afia, she said, no way that we're going to stay. We will all ikut daddy sebab we should not be separated like that. She wants to be near her daddy. So it says a lot lah, kan? Although like Zaid selalu sibuk kan, and I manage the kids 24/7. So macam ada macam apa, yelah selalu I lah yang handle the kids kan. So macam kalau the daddy pergi outstation ke apa ke, things life goes on. Tapi bila cakap daddy nak pindah, semua orang nak ikut. So that shows lah that despite not spending as much as myself, as much time with the girls still want to be with him. And now that it has been almost 6 months that we are happily in Kota Kinabalu, Alhamdulillah. So we are happy here. Tak ada anak-anak rasa nak balik KL ke apa. The anak-anak lah, which is yelah Father's Day kan. The mother lain cerita. So that's why you guys see me almost every month, right? So bulan ni macam I'm itching lah nak balik KL, tapi macam tahan tak apa. So that shows lah. That shows that he has been a very great father to the girls, and great partner to me as well. So alhamdulillah. So may Allah bless you. Semoga dikurniakan kesihatan, dimurahkan rezeki, dan kita kekal bahagia hingga ke jannah, insyaAllah.
Amin. Yeah. No, yeah.
And thank you to
it's
all
true, of course.
the husbands, all the fathers in kita families as well. I think they allow us to do this despite
They allow us
how-
to do this.
allow us to do this, supporting, kan? So thank you to all the papas, daddies. Happy Father's Day to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
the
to all the
K-fam.
K-fam fathers,
Yeah.
We
Happy
love you
Father's
all.
Day.
Terima kasih.
Sure.
Terima kasih.
Definitely.
arigato gozaimasu.
Yeah, wait.
Okay.
No doubt. Very, very grateful.
So when it comes to the next segment, we're going to be
Mm.
discussing the role of siblings atau adik-beradik sebagai support system ataupun annoying, as my daughter would call them. But we cannot choose our siblings, can we? We just have them, right? So kalau kita boleh pilih, mungkin lain cerita. Tapi ini adalah satu yang kita tak boleh pilih. So kita ada keluarga yang sedia ada, dan how do we navigate the sibling relationships? Maybe I could start with kakak. Yeah.
Thank you. In the same way about Papa being very involved with Joshua in our journey. Again, we are very fortunate. So Aaron, our eldest, he's 3 years older than Joshua. And because Joshua was diagnosed at very young age of 18 months, so if I take the time back, then Aaron would have only been 5 going on 6. So as we were doing our therapies originally, because there was not so much available in Malaysia, Abang Aaron pun sama sekali travel with us. And in that way, what naturally developed between the siblings was they were journeying together physically, and in many ways we are very fortunate. They have a very playful, very respectful sibling. I would use this word admiration in a way for both each other. It is really lovely to be able to see the boys being able to connect, albeit Joshua in the very early days actually had the typical features of hyperactivity, not responding to his brother. However, in spite of that, and the fact that Aaron was involved in every aspects in many ways. In the same school, Aaron actually attended some of the therapy sessions together during Joshua's session. And as they were growing up together, we were doing social communication, social emotional learning sessions. And Abang pun masuk dalam therapy session because we believe in this inclusive learning. If I can just share one last story, which is quite recent, the connection between the two brothers. Aaron now is studying overseas, but we will call regularly. And we went into the conversation for Joshua because he's preparing for O-levels. Mama was trying to discuss if Joshua would consider having some exam accommodation, access to additional time for example, a topic that he's not terribly strong at, not his strongest, English literature. This is Mama preparing. Mama was talking to Joshua, and Joshua said, "No, no need. I don't need it. I don't want it." And then Abang Aaron came into the conversation. And it is quite amazing, the relationship. And Aaron explained to Joshua, and Joshua, in the sense that, Joshua, you have nothing to lose. Guess what?
Okay.
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 Yes.
So the power of the friendship,
Yeah.
of peerness, I think we are very, very grateful. And we really learn to appreciate the power of that connectivity. Yeah. More powerful in this instance than parent.
That is a wonderful story.
Yes.
That's so cool.
It just shows how important those connections are.
Mhm.
And before I move on to the next person, boleh saya tanya, what do you think is a positive impact that Aaron has got from this journey?
I believe having a neurodivergent sibling, it is a lived experience. Plus the experience of being in an inclusive school, we used to worry whether there was enough numbers of neurodivergent or autistic or differently abled children in a classroom was so small in ratio. But what Aaron specifically and the typical students learned is very, very impactful. They learn that diversity is different. I believe he learned not to be afraid of the difference or the different behavior. And in many ways, in inclusion, the benefit oftentimes not recognized is actually to the typical community of peoples. And for Aaron, I dare say that ability to recognize, to embrace, and to be in community with different able individuals is that impact that we are very grateful for.
No, I remember you were saying before that it was Aaron that made you realize, right? Like when Aaron was saying, the people we have at our school, they're fine at school because they have a lot of support and they belong. They are very much a part of the community, but I can't help but wonder what's going to happen when they're outside. That comment came from Aaron, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering that.
Yeah.
And that would have had an impact sebab ini adalah seseorang abang yang tengah memikirkan masa depan bukan
Adik dia.
sahaja adik dia
Dan
tetapi
yang lain juga.
yang lain yang sama seperti adik dia.
Betul. And I like to believe that this is also the impact for all the other students who have the opportunity to be part of a different learning community.
No
Different
doubt.
ability, kan?
Yeah, no
Yes.
doubt. Leadership skills
Yeah.
from being empathetic, having compassion, and that whole being kind, problem solving,
Including in a team,
Yeah.
people
Yes.
of
collaborating,
varied
Yeah.
abilities and
Yeah.
needs.
No. Where else are you going to get that? Like you said, lived experience kan, pengalaman yang sebenarnya ini
Betul.
adalah authentic learning
Yes.
in the truest form.
It enriches their lives.
Yeah.
Enriches their lives.
For sure.
And these are the future leaders or bakal pemimpin dunia dan negara kami dan
Harapan bangsa adalah anak muda. Memang
ya,
betul.
dan mereka akan memberi impact yang positif dalam apa juga perjalanan hidup mereka.
And that
Betul.
creates that sustainable community that we are all aspiring for.
Yes. Yeah. There is a lot of hope in our kids. If I can jump in and say, daripada dulu, memang kalau kita, yelah, anak saya 3 orang kan. So kalau Timo yang autistik tu, dia seorang sahaja yang mempunyai abang dan mempunyai adik. So in a way he's got both, which is great, right? So kalau kita tengok pada abang dia, dari dia kecil lagi, sangat komen yang sangat konsisten daripada cikgu mana-mana pun adalah bahawa abang ni adalah seorang yang sangat dia adalah orang yang sangat macam mana nak sebut ya, I think dia orang akan sentiasa menceritakan tentang seorang murid yang amat mengambil dia memang ambil berat lah tentang rakan dia dekat kelas. Dialah yang paling sabar, dialah yang memang selalu menunjukkan belas kasihan. Dialah kalau apa-apa pun, kalau nak kena membantu cikgu dia ke, atau mungkin dalam kelas tu memang ada seorang student lah kan, mungkin anak tu sebenarnya neurodivergent tetapi kita tak tahu. Banyak kali kalau kita tengok sekolah aliran perdana, mainstream schools ni akan ada anak-anak yang sebenarnya neurodivergent. Tetapi untuk apa-apa sebab tertentu tak mempunyai diagnosis, tapi kita tahu mereka tidak tipikal, tak sama dengan yang lain. Kalau anak ada macam tu dan budak itu dah memang yalah jelas agak berbeza daripada yang lain. Antara kawan dia confirm anak saya lah. Anak saya yang akan berkawan dengan yang lain tu, yang sabar, yang okey, dan so kalau apa-apa yang berlaku dari segi bab akademik tu memang ada naik turun keputusan dia, tapi akan selalu diberitahu oleh cikgu-cikgu kepada kami, oh jangan risau puan, markah sosial anak 100%, sebagai contoh, things like that. So dia daripada tadika hingga ke sekarang, abang is the one, and not just abang now, I am seeing it with adik. Adik
stands up for the underdog.
Yes, stands up for the underdog is definitely both my kids. And they will just be the one who will be extra patient. They will get it. Their empathy muscles and their patience muscles had to grow more. The one thing I want to say though about siblings ni kan, I think masa kita perlu memberi perhatian tambahan, sokongan kepada anak kita yang neurodivergent, I think one of the things yang memang pernah dinasihatkan lah kepada kami, and I will also share with other people, is that jangan lupa juga ya pada anak-anak kita yang tipikal ni.
Betul.
Kita tak boleh nak abaikan diorang. Memang betul yang memerlukan maybe fokus yang lebih, perhatian yang lebih, takes a bit more time. It's going to be our neurodivergent children, but you have to remember that you have other children. And also, I think it's very, very important that they are part of that journey. So it's really great to hear, for example, cerita SK cerita SK tentang abang adik Aaron dengan Joshua. And sudah tentu disebabkan Aaron sangat terlibat di dalam perkembangan Joshua and all that. I think that's why mereka mempunyai perhubungan yang baik, dan Aaron juga sangat memahami. So I think satu, jangan kita fikirkan bahawa adik-beradik ni tak ada peranan, atau sungguh pun masa katalah adik kepada yang neurodivergent ataupun kecil lagi tak berapa faham, actually I think dia faham.
They faham a lot more than we understand.
No, really. And I see that definitely from adik. Timur's adik. Timur's adik, actually Timur's adik, is the one he has an easier I think relationship with, because at one point diorang pun dapat pergi ke sekolah yang sama. And adik is just, and memang
it's a special connection.
It's a special connection. Adik kita buat persediaan yang sangat rapi dan sangat teliti. Masa saya mengandung, nak prepare lah kan adik coming, and Timur definitely understands this is adik. So dalam dia beberapa tahun ni pun, dalam dia keadaan yang susah, kalau dia ada meltdown, adik tak pernah kena. there is still some kind of realization. Of course, one, alhamdulillah, maybe he's not quite been in that spot. But no, I think there is a realization that Adik is small and Adik is my little brother, supposed to look after him, that kind of thing.
He feels a sense of responsibility in a
I
way.
think so.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
argue that
I
even
would
if he
think.
doesn't fully understand that, he knows who is his little brother. And Adik pula, kerana dia, pengalaman dia agak, I would say lebih senang dan lebih, kerap lah routine and all that. Dengan abah dia tak risau. Dia tak rasa macam cemas bila dia melihat Timur cemas. Dia, of course, dia memang ambil berat lah. Of course he's concerned. What I'm saying is it doesn't stress him out. He's not like fearful.
And
He's not
I
like
think
scared.
bila
but
ada vibration
yeah.
seperti itu, abang walaupun ada meltdown sebab dia tahu ada adik, dia rasa a sense of responsibility juga.
Perhaps, yeah, I would
Yeah.
like to think so. So I mean, the anak sulung saya, dia pernah menceritakan sebenarnya kadang-kadang dia risau sebab dia rasa hubungan dia dengan adik yang paling dekat tak sama dengan adik paling bongsu. So dia memang telah meluahkan kebimbangan dia sedikit lah. Dan dia kata dia pun rasa dia tak sedap hati dengan keadaan macam ni. Dia tak nak, kalau boleh dia memang nak keadaan ni diperbaiki lah. So alhamdulillah, I'm glad he was able to share that. And I think we're all working on it. And ini disebabkan, as we know, there's like these difficult years with the puberty and all that. But it's good that dia dapat meluahkan dan dia dapat menceritakan, dan ni adalah sesuatu yang memang dia sendiri dah dapat kesan, right? And dia sedar that
And Nuri, apa yang Nuri ceritakan ni bukan saja kepada anak neurodivergent. Kadang-kadang ada adik-beradik neurotypical yang memang ada situasi seperti itu. Mereka akan ada
not
lebih.
all adik-beradik will get along with each other
other.
naturally,
Yes.
right? So but it's good that I think kalau dia sedar dan dia nak memperbaiki keadaan, I think that's a good thing.
That is an
right?
amazing
Because for some people they'll be like,
insight.
okay lah,
Yeah.
memang tak semestinya kita dapat. So tak apa lah, siapa kata kita semua kena dapat just because we are adik-beradik. And I think sometimes people take that attitude, right? So but I mean, for me it's very, very clear. I don't know whether the boys realize themselves. I don't know whether Jibril, Rafe, whether they realize themselves what a big difference it has made, because they have a Timur, in their life, right? That they might not credit him immediately. Mungkin diorang tak akan fikirkan bahawa benda-benda ni yang telah nampak jelas pada orang sekeliling sebagai satu kekuatan, right? Sesuatu kebolehan yang wujud pada both, abang and adik. Maybe they don't think it's from Timur, but it absolutely is, right? These are the kids that can just handle everything, and I can see it too, because yang bongsu ni dekat sekolah, best friend dia, kawan karib dia pun kebetulan mempunyai abang yang neurodivergent juga. So mereka dua memang bersefahaman, and of course adalah minat yang sama, suka main bola and things like that. But these two memang cikgu-cikgu semua akan kata that these are the guys that we count on in class. So kalau lah kata ada budak baru ke, ataupun memang ada mereka bertuahkan, alhamdulillah dapat pergi ke sekolah inklusif. So ada tiap-tiap bilik darjah akan ada student yang neurodivergent juga, and definitely they will be friends. These two will be the one. So kalau field trip ke, kalau keluar mana-mana ke, situasi baru ke apa, diorang ni akan ada bersama yang student ataupun classmate yang mempunyai yang memerlukan the additional support. So
Sebab mereka inclusive.
Yes,
Because they are
So if I
inclusive.
could just summarize it, what Nori telah ceritakan tadi adalah satu kebaikan yang telah wujud adalah kedua-dua abang dan adik menjadi lebih inklusif kepada semua kawan. Tidak kira sama ada, bukannya dari segi bangsa juga, daripada kebolehan juga. Semua.
Yes, they are definitely more inclusive, dan mereka memang daripada kecil sudah
menunjukkan tahap toleransi yang tinggi.
Yes, dan kemahiran untuk menjadi orang yang boleh membantu, yang boleh menyesuaikan diri, yang so many things lah. So definitely there are clear benefits. So I hope one day that memang the boys will see it, that they can understand it's from that. And of course, other family members too. My house is very colourful, right? We've got another neurodivergent person. Now we have Kaka, and she's got Down syndrome. So we have all definitely benefited from each other, for sure. And we continue to do so because we are all so different in the family. Alhamdulillah, I mean, really, for everything.
Yeah.
Desiree, anything to add to that?
Okay, so bab siblings ni, adik-beradik, memang kadang-kadang it's a bit of a soft spot for me. Memang kalau boleh, I wish Hans could have a sibling, tetapi memang it's not an option for us lah anymore. It's not for the lack of trying. Memang pernah cuba IVF dan sebagainya, and memang tak boleh lah. But and the reason why saya rasa sedih, because I always think kan, when I'm not here is one thing. Memang we think of that day, right, that we are not here, regardless whether our children have siblings or not. We worry what's going to happen to them. Saya akan sayang mereka, be there for them. But for me, the one haunting image that I always have, sebab when you lose a parent, and I'm thinking about the day when I leave this earth, the only person who understands as much as you do would be a sibling.
Of that loss, kan? The
Of that
shared loss.
And I have goosebumps, kan? And my worry is that day I'm not there, he's going to be standing alone. And the reason why I'm saying this out loud, I've never said this on camera before, is I think it's important to acknowledge, sebab bukan saya sahaja rasa macam ni. I'm sure there are a lot of other parents out there who only have one child with a disability, with no other option. And I just want to say to you that I hear you and I see you and I also feel. I feel you. Sorry about that. But on that note, to acknowledge all the siblings, I want to say thank you for what you do, because memang susah, right? Memang susah and tanggungjawab yang besar, ya. And I have a friend, dia ada sepasang kembar, lelaki dan perempuan. Perempuan is neurodivergent and the boy is neurotypical. Dan memang bless the parents lah. Memang they have gone through thick and thin to make sure they are in an inclusive environment. Tetapi kadang-kala, and this is something my friend told me, tanggapan society terhadap sibling yang neurotypical memang sangat, tanggungjawab yang sangat besar. Because they are expected to be the ones who are more tolerant, expected to kadang-kadang dalam sekolah inklusif membantu kawan-kawan yang neurodivergent. But sometimes they want to be like their other friends. Diorang pun nak pergi main bola, not stay back with another kid. So on that note, I also want to say I hear you and I see you.
No, betul, that's true. Actually that happened with my youngest one. Ada sekali tu bila memanglah dia yang biasa dan ada itu mak lah, dia terkena something, nanti terkena pukul or thing or whatever, and she was really very hurt. And I was not very helpful on that day because I usually will try to understand the situation, take that perspective, and he was like, hey, you're supposed to be on my side, you know?
Yes.
So that was a learning for me.
And
I felt, after that I was
expected
like, whoa,
to be
it was a
superheroes.
that was like a learning for me. But no, it's true. And you know, kita tahu kisah sebenarnya dan kita faham mengapa benda ni berlaku. Memang kadang-kadang keputusan untuk sama ada untuk menambahkan anak memang berkaitan dengan anak neurodivergent. Kadang-kadang kita fikirkan, okay, cukup, memang kita dah tak sanggup.
Betul.
Because kita tak mampu, right? Maybe beban kewangan, masa, sumber-sumber segala-galanya lah memang tak cukup. So kita rasa macam, okay, kita memang tak boleh lah terlalu ramai anak sebagai contoh. But the other thing is, I also know where they're like, kita kena ada anak tambahan sebab siapa nak jaga anak ni nanti?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so there's all that. So it's true that society pun they will put that thing on the children's family members, especially kita ni kan orang, masyarakat timur. Here we are in Malaysia and our Asian culture and the whole family ties and all that. I think what I'd like to say is, of course, I would like for the boys, I've told all of them, I said you need to of course look out for each other. But
Yeah.
bagi kami, I think kita tak nak meletakkan beban yang direct dan 100% terhadap
Yeah.
mana-mana anak kami untuk
Yeah.
menjaga anak-anak yang lain. I think
Yeah.
that's not really fair. I hope they will want to
Yes.
be there to participate and mungkin kita tak tahulah akan ada peranan seperti pemegang amanah dan sebagainya. Tetapi takkanlah kita nak expect, kalau boleh sebaiknya kita tak naklah letakkan pada bahu mereka.
Yeah.
Betul.
Especially peranan yang kita mainkan. Siapa nak ganti primary caregiver, mak atau bapa, especially the one yang mainly there, and
Yeah.
nobody can do that.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to live their own life.
Yeah.
Right?
I think as parents, this conversation memang comes up kerap. Yeah. The burden to the siblings. I think for me, my prayer is that we remember as parents, every child we have is unique.
And a gift from God.
So whether typical, whether neurodivergent, what neurotype, sebenarnya each one are unique, and each
Memerlukan dan
Yeah.
memerlukan
and
juga.
and we are often as parents, because of the demand that is made of attention given to our neurodivergent child, we have to be very intentional to remember every child is our child. Yeah. So the time that is suitable. So when you share about Jibril meluahkan, that he wish it was different. I reflect on that as because he's maturing in his sense of his individual, his responsibility, and that's typical for the older, kan? They start to want to have a role. Yeah. I also want to share as I chit chat dengan sibling and all the
Your siblings?
not just my siblings but siblings of.
Okay.
Many do express that they did not get the opportunity to be part of the intervention, to be part of when they wanted to. I think because maybe there's not enough awareness, because we try to protect. As parents, we always try to protect. The beautiful story that I hear about Jibril and Raif is they are involved. Joshua benefit really a lot from socialization with Jibril as friends. His empathy, his understanding actually provide Joshua the safety
Yeah.
for the continuous socialization. And we can see that Joshua will look to Jibril. He looks to the safety. Actually, that's the key word that comes back.
Yes.
So the impact, actually, the influence, the impact of being exposed, that will create empathy, that will create understanding, that will deflect fear.
Yeah.
That is a big impact.
That's big. I think we should share on our show notes when they were in their own interview on BFM, right?
That's right.
Yes.
So on this episode, we should share Jib and Joshua talking about being siblings
Indeed.
well, Joshua in his context of he is the neurodivergent, but
That's right.
also in the family, in that and the dynamics lah of a mixed group, right?
So we want. I
Yeah.
just want to invite menjemput ibu bapa. Do try to melibatkan
semua.
kesemuanya, and to involve them in play, in different circumstances, the hard one, to the ability. We are still responsible as an adult, to the ability of each of our child.
Yeah. I think Anit is very good at that. This is a good time for you to jump in, Anit.
I actually want to say something about
Yeah.
this because I want to reach out to all those siblings who feel the trauma or feel some form of discrimination or internalize
the feeling
the feeling of less because of what their siblings who are neurodivergent go through. And I know a lot of them who feel that way because they are helpless. They want to be kids themselves. They're growing up. Tetapi bila mereka nampak adik-beradik mengalami kesan negatif ataupun efek daripada masyarakat yang mereka tahu mereka tidak akan hadapi sekiranya mereka neurotypical. Kesan kepada mereka itu sangat-sangat berat. Sebab they are conflicted. Sebab adakah mereka sepatutnya menjadi wira dan stand up and say stop this, it's not like this, ataupun perlukah mereka bersabar? Dan ini adalah satu trait or satu sikap yang saya rasa semua adik-beradik kepada mana-mana anak yang mempunyai ketidakupayaan atau neurotypical yang akan hadapi dan perlu menjadi sebahagian daripada DNA mereka yang bukan menjadi DNA kepada kawan-kawan mereka yang biasa. Dan ini menjadi satu kelebihan in the long term, tetapi pada masa short term itu, kadang-kadang mereka rasa bersendirian. And they feel alone. And until they come to that acceptance, until people around them show them acceptance, instead of saying, oh, adakah abang atau kakak itu psycho? Ada yang akan menggunakan perkataan seperti itu. Dan bagaimanakah seseorang kanak-kanak itu perlu respon kepada isu-isu sebegini?
It's beban actually.
It's actually a beban.
Yeah.
So, kepada mereka, I salute you. We all know your struggles. We know you're going to come out better.
It's time for you to salute your kids.
It's time for me to salute my 2 kids because bila saya mengandung
Nearest
anak ketiga,
adik-adik.
bila saya mengandung anak ketiga, saya telah diberitahu oleh doktor untuk expect regression. Now, as a mom of a neurodivergent child, when you are told that a decision to have a child or do anything may have a negative impact, that is huge. That is huge. So sometimes you actually wonder whether you're doing the right thing, and you start planning. And obviously, doa tu telah bertambah beribu-ribu kali, dan you are like kepada saya memang mendoakan yang perkara itu tidak akan berlaku dan ini menjadi satu yang positif. And I bersyukur dan bersujud setiap hari kerana adik itu menjadi partner in crime kepada abang, right? And the middle child who has had to be responsible and be the abang is sometimes
even though
left
he
out.
is adik,
Even though he's adik is sometimes left out. So they have evolved into a gang where they fight, they scream, but they support each other. And I am very, very grateful to Nirav siblings for being who they are and evolving into people who are the human beings that I don't think I would have seen otherwise, positively. And in the long run, I hope they will see it as a positive experience. On that note, Didi, I want to hear from you because it's such a different role bila ada 2 anak yang probably understand each other a bit more.
Well, sebab beza both of them about 20 months. So macam bila kakak Afia mula tunjuk dia punya signs yang ada autism, dia susah nak console everything, I was already heavily pregnant, too late. So memang rasa susah lah masa lahir kan, masa Amy lahir, Afia ignored her for a good 6 months, you know. Dia tak ada gaduh-gaduh. Whenever I fed Amy, dia tak ada berebut nak datang to me. Dia macam duduk jauh je. But she ignored as if macam adik baby tu tak wujud. Until one day dia baring dekat dengan adik dia, and I even took a picture of it. first time dia menunjukkan dia notice, memang nampak sayang dan notice yang ada another baby in the house. So masa tu kan dia baru umur 2 tahun lebih. So I was like macam macam pelik kan kenapa macam ni, until lepas tu dia dapat diagnosis, and it was definitely a very hard time lah, because kan kakak masih berlari, kalau lepas tangan je lari, adik still kena dukung. But amazingly, kan ramai budak-budak autistik masa kecil dia ada echolalia, where they repeated the line from the TV shows, right? So what happened was, bila nak tidur malam, so masa tu dua-dua pun tidur dengan I juga. Dia nak tidur malam tu, dua-dua start bercakap, echolalia, repeating lines of the character, tapi macam seorang jadi ni, seorang jadi ni. Sebiji tapi so cute lah. And then lepas tu kan dia swap character. Oh, kakak pula jadi ni pula. Same scene and boleh. So I was like macam riuh lah, nak tidur lah. But they were like still lagi like having conversation. Echolalic, I call it simultaneous echolalic. And then ada juga time kan, there was one time kita hantar dia, sebab I selalu the memory, because cerita-cerita dulu tu susah nak ingat, sebab I think I was also traumatized. Kita tak simpan sangat the memory. Only kalau ada gambar dan kita ingat macam, oh yeah, this happened. So another thing was kita bawa dia orang pergi baking class, and then dekat baking class kan pakai mixer. Machine mixer tu kan bunyi kuat kan. So we had a picture of Afia standing behind Amy and covering Amy's ear and dia punya telinga sendiri.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know that picture. So sweet.
Sebab tu Afia, the sound was very loud, and if it hurt me, it could hurt Amy's as well.
Lovely.
So the empathy was there, like early on. It memang ada, despite like orang kata macam autistic, you have to teach them empathy, they don't feel, but it just shows that being both autistic, they understand each other better. And they macam memanglah Amy dia tak takut bunyi kuat macam Afia. Macam Afia, dia just tak suka bunyi kuat. Amy, dia tak suka bunyi mengejut, startled dengan sudden loud noise. So differently, but Afia think that, mungkin Amy akan takut juga. So the empathy was there. And then macam sekarang kakak suka karaoke tapi sorang-sorang dalam bilik. So if she is singing in the room, kita boleh dengar kan daripada pintu luar, and then I nak panggil dia, the adik would stop. No, don't go. She's singing. Dia suruh tunggu kakak dia habis menyanyi, then only you
This
can
is loyalty.
Not like the feelings yang kita kena ajar. Bukan empathy yang kita perlu ajar kepada mereka, tapi mungkin cara nak mengekspresi and things like that, which is different. It's not trying to teach the feeling. The feeling is there.
They have
Again,
the
there's that whole fitrah thing, right? The feeling is there, but it's like what to do with that, right? What to do with that feeling, maybe how to express it a little bit better thing. So so it's different. No, please go on. I love like these stories. And Didi, can I just say, nobody ever thinks or remembers that you also went through that hard or traumatizing time, because everything looks, it's also, good now. So I think it's and not 100% good now, but just to remember that the positivity can come through in spite of everything.
She's sitting here and smiling and telling these stories. That says a lot.
Even every time bila kita outing sekarang kan, sekarang dah ada peluang lah, mama and daddy nak jalan pegang tangan, the kids jalan depan, kadang-kadang by the side they walk berdua kan. So macam dekat hati ni still lagi rasa macam, oh my god, like many years ago, tapi rasa macam baru lagi. Macam tahun lepas, padahal dah lama lah. Like many years ago, I had to hold their hands, tak boleh lepas tangan langsung. But now, you just walk. Boleh. We even went to Central Market last year. Ramai-ramai orang pun macam, okay, the girls macam just stay together. So it was traumatizing, tapi of course the empathy of like, we're still thinking of ada lagi parents yang sampai anak dah besar pun still perlu being handheld kan, pegang tangan lagi apa semua. So of course we still feel that, but the bonding between the two girls memang macam amazing. Tapi macam dia tahu dia adik-beradik. Macam kan kita kalau family kadang-kadang macam adik-beradik suka pakai baju sama apa semua. But no, Afia dengan Amy dia kata tema sama tak apa, same colour, same pattern ke apa ke boleh, but
Jangan
must be
sedondon.
different. Bukan sedondon boleh, jangan sama. Jangan exactly sama. So macam kalau adik pakai baju kebaya, kakak pakai baju kurung ke, ataupun just colour je sama tapi different pattern. So they're like macam no. I think because they are so used to be different, they macam kenapa nak sama, different pun tak apa.
Actually,
Macam tu.
Didi, it sounds like they have very individual identities.
Yes.
Memang identiti individu yang sangat ketara.
Dia macam they really macam faham each other. So macam memang now that they have separate rooms, sebab memang kakak macam no, I want to have her own nak bilik sendiri, and adik took many years to train her to sleep in her own room. So I tak boleh lah macam depend on macam you tidur bilik kakak, so at least there's someone. But kakak already said that no, I want to be alone. So it was like extra hard for us lah to ajar adik untuk tidur betul-betul being alone kan. So they say lah preference, saya suka macam ni, saya macam ni, and then also lagi satu they macam tadi kan macam the sensory wise kan dia faham. Lagi satu strength wise, macam Afia she tak pandai buka botol. So what she would do is bila dia nak minum air mineral yang tak buka lagi kan, dia just pass lah dekat Amy, and Amy would open it for her.
So it's a silent signal. I pass to you, you know what to do.
Yeah. And because Amy knows I'm the strong one. She knows that I'm the strong one. I help you. Let me help you. So macam tu. And then kalau dalam kereta where they cannot be alone, so they really have to be with each other kan, duduk side by side. They would always macam share lah whatever they watch on YouTube kan, tunjuk and really laugh together tau. So the joint attention and knowing what other people would find interesting as well. Kak Afia kan tinggi.
Adik yang lain juga lah kan.
So it sounds like
you get
like two neurotypical siblings.
Tapi the echolalic and the sensory part and the strength. So there's the autistic traits ada juga. Tapi how it become apa ni lah. Although like
how it becomes part of their bond.
Yeah, and then I remember ada sekali tu Afia cakap apa tau, dia kata, don't you remember I told you I didn't want a adik, I didn't want a baby sister. I'm like, you were 20 months apart and you dengan ada speech delay lagi. When did you ever tell me that? Dia macam macam what I felt, I think she remember why I don't know how, like, but she said like, I never wanted adik.
By the way, I learned very recently there's one autistic trait where a thought has crossed their mind and they thought that they had communicated it, you know, and it upset them a lot.
Yes.
Not to be understood. They didn't realize that they didn't actually speak. Dia tak menyebut supaya orang lain dapat dengar dan memahami. Tapi dalam hati kecil dia rasa dan dia dah, sebab dah terlintas pada fikiran dia rasa orang dah dengar. So by the way, this is a thing, I just learned this and I heard it from like 2-3 different sources, and I think it's because again we are grateful now to have the autistic voices.
Yes.
But,
Actually, Didi, can I congratulate you? If you don't mind, I'm going to share a learning moment of what you described that is so beautiful. Dr. Daniel Milton has got this term called double empathy. And what he's found is actually the communication between the neurodivergent individuals. They have a very special connection.
Yes.
And listening to you is a real life contohnya of what the science have been researching, and that connectivity between your two daughters who are neurodivergent actually is a phenomenon they notice. If you notice the adults who gather together who are neurodivergent, they somehow are very comfortable.
yeah, even when they're non-speaking.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
Very comfortable with each other.
Yeah. And they will
And-
share.
and
when
they will
not
share.
share with neurotypicals.
Correct, because somehow they have the empathy,
Yeah.
that understanding, that their own communication path.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not telepathy. they have that understanding of
Yeah.
their own neurodivergence.
No, the connection and maybe mirror neurons, if we're staying
Yeah.
on the science, is
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
right? You can sense many things. Sometimes it's just movement, and then of course energy, things like that. Tak perlu kita berhubung dan berkomunikasi seperti biasa.
Yeah. So in a way, why I congratulated you, Didi, is because you facilitate, enable them, rather than try to say, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. And what you have described really is a beautiful outcome of just being
Sisters.
Yes.
being sisters, having that relationship, and including you and them into their communication.
And a common understanding of where they want to do and what they want to do.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Fascinating.
Yes, on
And
that
think
note,
and actually thinking that Mama had the telepathy to know what they were thinking.
Tak juga
amazing?
sebab banyak like now that they are talking, they did like tell me stories about when before they were speaking. There was one time kan dulu I did cerita in one of the episode dulu I cakap that I had to hantar Amy pergi babysitter sebab I tak boleh manage hantar bawa Afia pergi terapi and then nak bawa dua-dua tak boleh, so hantar Amy pergi babysitter. So that about few years ago I tanya, I think Amy was like 8 or 9 years old already. So I cakap lah, do you remember the time I sent you to the babysitter? And she said, oh yeah, that masa tu dia tak boleh cakap lagi tau because she was barely like 1.5 year old like that, belum 2 tahun lagi. And then because of the autism, the speech was lambat juga apa semua kan. So she said, oh that time Mama, I felt abandoned. So macam dia boleh ingat perasaan dia, and now that she has the word, she put the word. So macam the memory kan, the still ingat. And of course lepas tu I cakap lah, I explain, okay at that time Mama had to manage Afia, and then like I couldn't handle, and you were safer at the other house at that semua. So she kind of like terima, maafkan lah Mama, because yalah we explain lah. So abandoned, that was a big word, and then like to remember that feeling kan. So I guess macam yalah Afia, like dia salah Afia kata oh tak nak adik. So rupa-rupanya yalah maybe like Nori said lah, dia dah ada perasaan tu. Tapi dah yalah bila dia cakap kita pun tak tahu and dah terlambat. And but this is a built-in best friend what. We so much of we thought that
inshallah you have
kan, it's hard to manage two autistic kids, and then of course they have different needs as well. Even until now they had to go to different centers. So there's a positive things coming out of it juga lah, alhamdulillah. So that's the dynamic of like the two autistic sisters, Afia and Amy, at the age of 13 and 15. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear more as they grow.
Oh, they were one more thing. When Afia, Afia of course had her period first. So when Amy was waiting for her first time, Afia was the one who explained it to her how it feels like in her words, which is like macam kita pun tak terfikir. Macam oh okay, that makes sense, and it made Amy lega and macam understand better lah. So that's why autistic voice really help. But we have two autistic voices in the house that can help each other. So that was also a nice thing to have in the house.
Yeah, that's a blessing lah when you look at it like that, kan? It's so good to be able to see it positively. You wanted to say something before we close off just now?
Yes, I wanted to congratulate the four of you because of your amazing families and the children, the children that you raise, you modeled that to them. I don't know if you realize that, but you SK, I nearly doctored you again.
Okay.
SK, you model to Aaron to be that big brother to Joshua, and with Didi, of course, your two girls look to you, and the reason why they are so open and honest is because you allow for that. Not every kid is brave enough to tell their mom, you abandoned me, and survive that. And of course with Nori, with so much grace your kids speak for themselves. And I always remember the story Anit told us about her youngest, who helped a boy in school because she saw her mom and her brother's teachers do that for him.
Yes.
Because he needed that extra prompting for an exam.
Yes.
So, I'm so proud to be your adik. So we are the family, the siblings that we choose. And I kind of, force myself on y'all. But yes, I'm the adik.
Oh, well
Thank you to my
received.
kakas.
No. We're
Thank
very
you.
grateful for this family
Yes,
right
we
here.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And on that note, we want to pay tributes not just to all the dads. We want to pay an extra big tribute to all the siblings. I'm sure this conversation will continue.
Yeah.
So to all adik-beradik kepada anak neurodivergent,
Yeah. We love
saya
you.
cinta padamu.
We love you.
We love you.
Yeah.
And keep doing what you do because you make the world so much easier for your siblings and you make the future so much brighter for all your siblings.
Yes. Thank you.
Any last words?
I'm saying bye already. This was a long episode.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any thoughts and any feelings or anything to share based on what we discussed, please drop us a note. Please like, share, and follow us on Kita Family Podcast. We are on Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and we hope to see you in the next episode. Terima kasih. See you
Kasih.
again.
Bye.